welcome to part one of swapping my IS300 with a CD009. I will be using the Fisch Racing JZ to CD adapter kit. I have my brand new CD009 right over here. I really only just opened it up and took a look at it. I do have a few things. I also have the CD009 shifter I'll be using. I have most of the parts to swap everything in. I still need a drive shaft and I'm waiting on the trans cross member to come in. So once that comes in, I'll actually be able to bolt this up. But there is quite a few things I have to do to prepare this before we can actually bolt it up. We've got the transmission here marked using the tool. So you just basically set it down there, go all around the trans, and get that cut. So this is probably going to be the hardest part here. I'll start cutting that. I don't need to cover up this vent. Also cutting off this section as well. I'll definitely put the link to the CD009 video for the cut and everything, just because it goes a lot more into detail of what you need to do, and you need to be careful with like the barrier plate down there and everything. I'm just gonna go ahead and get started on the cut. I got the first piece cut off the transmission here. We see this piece right here. That was right there. It does prevent you from doing a nice straight line here, so had to get that cut off first. Gonna wipe that off, get that line straight, and then I can start cutting the bell housing. Unfortunately, I thought I had blades, but I am all out and I could barely get through this, so I need to go pick up some blades, and then after that we should be in a good spot to start throwing the adapter on and everything. We'll pick this back up tomorrow. Unfortunately, I can't continue just because I don't have the blades for it, but I'll just go ahead and mark the transmission where it needs to be, and then we'll continue on that tomorrow. Get that shifter on there as well. We should be good to go. We got quite a bit to do. So need to clear up the trans tunnel and make it fit and everything. So that's going to be a whole process. All right, we're here on day 2 of installing the CD009 in my car. Yesterday we left off on not having enough blades. Went to Harbor Freight, picked up some blades for the Sawzall, and I should be able to get going on this. I do have to mark the line in the spot that I cut yesterday. Cool. So, cut this off yesterday. If you watch the CD009 video, you'll see they cut this off first. You can get a straight line here. As you can see, my line is quite bad in that area. Definitely, this is the scariest part of installing this kit. You have to cut the bell housing and to be able to attach the adapter kit. Triple checked the line and it looks good. I'm going to go ahead and start the first cut with the angle grinder, and then I'm going to switch over to the Sawzall and we'll go from there. Just did the first cut here with the angle grinder. I do see where I can start my line there. And then yeah, I'm going to go ahead and get started with the Sawzall and we'll just get cutting there.
So tell me what's your excuse? There's no reason this freedom can't be put to good use. I've grown closer to closure, exposing parts of the truck. I've been cursing at the wind since the days of my youth. Since the days of my youth. Since the days of my
Comes right off. Put this down over here. So just got that off. Now I'm just gonna go back over the cut and go at it with a flapper disc here just to even all this out. Yeah, there's sections you just want to be careful where it gets close. You can see I just barely touched it with the blade there, but it should be all good. But yeah, there it is, all cut up. Now we'll have to take this off, but first I do need to drain the transmission before I do that. So I will take care of the draining first and then we'll go from there. Got the transmission drained, getting ready to use the input shaft cutting guide here to get this cut. I'm gonna get that cut right there. And then I'll clean up the previous cut around the bell housing and give this a nice chamfer just like the original input shaft. Then we'll work on getting the shifter on and put the bell housing on. see on this, it's got like a rounded edge. So we are going to recreate that on this input shaft.
I've been waiting and wasting.
All the edges cleaned up. Everything is nice and smooth. Nothing is sharp. The input shaft is looking nice. We'll get the transmission cleaned up and we'll get the shifter on.
Take it no more. There's a burning inside me and I'm losing control.
Now we're working on the shifter installation here. I took a second time lapse to figure out exactly how I was going to get this pin out of the selector here. So I ended up using an Allen head bit and pretty much just stuck it in, and I have part of the pin out. So basically you got this shifter installed. There is a pin here that you can see on this side. I am hitting it from here, and I am using that Allen head to get that pushed through, and then gonna use probably an Allen key now and push it the rest of the way.
I've been lost in the darkness, but now I'm seeing the truth. I've been cursing at the wind since the days of my youth. I've been waiting and waiting since the days of my youth.
So we have the selector off, and as you can see here, I got the second pin mostly all the way out. Don't have to pull it all the way, that's all right. This pin sits inside of that pin, so I use the smaller Allen key first, and then use the bigger one of these bits, started pushing it through, and then I stuck this Allen key through as well and hammered it through. You want to make sure you push this selector all the way in to make sure it's in the strongest position for you to be hammering it. Now we end up with this, and here's where we're gonna attach our CD009 shifter here. So I got the shifter components out. Here is the section that slides onto the selector shaft here. Just making sure this is lined up, looks good there. So I have the shifter over here, took the rubber boot off, popped everything off. Here's the hardware to mount it. For this transmission, you do need these spacers. So this transmission specifically uses the ones that are here. There are different spacers. If you watch the CD009 video, he explains it, but it just basically goes in there. There's a slot. These do not need it, so I'll be using these. So yeah, I'll just go ahead, pop this in, and then we'll get the shifter installed. CD009 shifter is now installed. Want to make sure when doing this, at least specifically for this car, putting the shifter as far forward as you can. As you can see, it is mounted as close as possible. So that is all good to go there. Goes through the gears, all good. Reverse lockout, everything is good to go there. So now we can start working on the bell housing. So we're moving on to the bell housing part of the installation. Went and got some sealant, and here is where it is now. So turn the transmission around. We're gonna be popping this plate off. You wanna make sure you have the transmission drained at this point. I'm gonna go ahead and pop this plate off. I'll set up a time lapse while I get this off. So we are finishing off part one here today. We have cut the bell housing, cut the input shaft. We have installed the shifter as well. So that is all on the transmission, pretty much ready to go to put in the car. We'll just fill it up with trans fluid once it's up. So finishing off part one, we have the CD009 shifter installed at the closest position possible, and then we'll throw the rod on later. Then we have the bell housing on the transmission now. It is now bolted on and torqued in there. So that is all good to go. Quick note for this hole is normal, this little gap here, but you want to make sure you go around and that there is nothing preventing the actual bell housing from mating to the bearing surface. I had like one spot that was sticking out too much. I wasn't letting it sit fully, so now it is fully seated. So that's all good to go now. So I just pretty much went around it with this and just made sure that there's a gap all the way around, and that was all good to go. So that is pretty much it for that. We do have the clutch hydraulics we have to work on, but I'll make a separate video on that, how I'm doing the clutch master. But that is pretty much it for this part. Thank you very much for watching. I definitely want to continue doing this. I feel like I get to do quite a few things now that I am drifting my car. I definitely have to work on it a lot. So definitely have quite a bit of content that I can make. We are going to be boosting the car. As you can see, we have an engine in the corner. Building that as well, tuning the car on a Link ECU. I am working with Panic Wire, getting an ECU through them for Link. So that will be awesome, and I can't wait to put that in. But yeah, we'll just leave it there, and thank you for watching and stopping by.